Hello and welcome to another episode of Warhammer 40k Model Evolution. I wanted to look at Necrons this week. Necrons aren't that extensive of an army. They actually had a lot less models than I expected when I started looking. And honestly, the bulk of their army have come out in the last about 5 or 6 years. Still, they have a lot of really cool older models that I think would be fun to look at, and a lot of the classic stuff is still around. Necrons are one of the armies I do collect, of course picking them up in the Indominus box. And there are some old Necrons here that I've never seen before, so I'm really excited to get into this video and show you guys some really cool Necron models. Let's start with the 2020 Necron Warriors. These came out in the 9th edition Indominus box. I love the Necron Warriors. They're some of my favorite basic infantry troops. The resurrection abilities they have and just how hard they are to really get off the table. I think they're super cool. And I think their model perfectly reflects that, as they all look like walking skeletons, but they're made of metal and they look super tough. These previous Necron Warrior sculpts were from 2002 and came out in 3rd edition. These are probably a lot of classic Necron fans' favorites. These ones of course had that fluorescent green plastic tube that you would have to fit into the gun barrel. I gotta say, it is a pretty cool feature that they have those. I never built one myself, but I have seen some people use them. They do look pretty cool. But the actual body of the Warriors I think has been improved, especially considering how the new ones have some battle damage and they look a little torn up. But they still look very similar to these older models from 2002, which is interesting. This model from 1998 is technically called the Necron Raider, but it very much is the predecessor of the Warrior. I think I still see some of the Egyptian influence on this model, especially with that cool necklace. But I find it interesting how this model is a little bit more steampunk than the newer stuff, especially with those interesting pipes he has in his legs and the joints he has in his hands. And the gun looks like it's out of Star Wars. I think this model is a really interesting mix of different science fiction IPs. This is a Space Crusade Chaos Android from 1990. I don't know what this is supposed to be from, to be honest. It's pretty old. However, calling it a Chaos Android makes me think that maybe it was more demon affiliated. I'm pretty sure this is a predecessor to the Necrons entirely, and these are just some kind of Chaos Android that was created. Next, let's look at the Overlord, one of the most famous commander units for the Necrons. This is the newest of the Overlords. This is the one with the translocation shroud. This model looks really cool. I know I'd have a really good time painting those kind of digital pixelated effects. This is the Overlord that I have and that I know too well, with that one-time use arrow that he has in his hand there. I do quite like this model. I wish he stood a little bit taller. His weapon's very impressive, but the size of the model himself isn't that much bigger than the other regular warriors. Still though, when you paint him gold and everything else silver, he definitely stands out. This Overlord came out in 7th edition. I've seen this one many times. I think this is the one with the resurrection orb. I really like the scythe this one has. I do think his headpiece is just a little bit too big though, but this one's really well painted. Those green effects on the scythe and on the resurrection orb are really well done. Here's another Overlord from 2012. This one looks almost identical to the other ones. I would say Necrons haven't really changed that much in the past 10 years. This one from 2011 is a bit different. The shoulder pads and the headpiece are all a little more unique than any of the other Overlords we've seen so far. I wanted to lump in the basic lords as well. This is the basic Necron Lord from 2007. Sorry to call this basic if it's one of your favorites. It just has significantly less detail than the Overlords. He still has that fluorescent green tube, and besides his cape, he just doesn't have anything very special going on. This Necron Lord from 2002 I think is really good. I quite like the pose he's in. Those long claws look super cool, and the cape kind of wrapped around his body looks great. This is a limited edition Necron Lord from 2002. I've never seen this one before. I think it's a cool use of the fluorescent tube at the bottom of the hilt instead of near the top. It looks pretty cool. But besides that, it's pretty similar to the other basic lords that we've seen so far. This Necron Lord from 1998 is awesome. This is when they were leaning into the Egyptian theme wholeheartedly. This thing is 100% just a mechanical pharaoh. I really like it. The staff is great, the scarab at the very top is super good, and the Egyptian headgear looks really, really cool. Next, let's check out the Flayed Ones. These came out in 2021. I've seen some really good paint schemes on these guys. I believe they're supposed to be Necrons who still have some of their remaining flesh left on their bones. So I would say that these ones in the picture here aren't even the best models I've seen. The sculpts themselves are very good though. I love the long sharp fingers and how hunched over they all are. These Flayed Ones came out in 5th edition. Definitely a different take here. These ones look like they're more wearing cloaks of skin instead of still being covered in their own skin. And they kind of look more like scavengers than anything else. These Flayed Ones came out in 3rd edition, and these ones are gross. These ones look like they're still emerging from their own skin. It's a really crazy look. But I would say it gets the point across better than the previous ones, because to me, Flayed Ones have always looked like they're supposed to be kind of suffering and in pain, and these ones definitely get that point across. Let's look at Destroyers next. This is one of my personal favorite models that I own, and it's the Locust Heavy Destroyer from 2020. I think this model is so cool. He's like his own floating gunship. I think I always like the big gun model of any faction, and this one's one of my favorites. I also consider it a huge upgrade from this 3rd edition Heavy Destroyer. This thing has 2 of those fluorescent light tubes, and the kind of propulsion system he sits on just isn't bulky enough to really make me believe that it's supporting him. This is the non-heavy version, the regular Destroyer. This one's a little bit better. I think the extra long, skinny gun in the previous one's pretty goofy looking. This one's a little more believable. And this is a 2nd edition Destroyer. I'm not even sure if this is an actual Necron or if this is just like a turret. I do think it's pretty cool looking, I'm just not quite sure if it's really a Necron or not. The Necron monolith is one of the most popular models for the Necrons, I would say. It's definitely super unique. Not a lot of factions have something like the monolith. It's just a moving structure that you can bring onto the battlefield. This 9th edition one is really well done. I'm quite a fan of it. I love how the warrior is stepping out of the portal there, and I like the canoptic spider in the back who's kind of creeping over the orb in the center. This obelisk from 6th edition is technically a different unit, but it's obviously very similar to the monolith. I think this one's pretty cool. It's kind of like a moving prison walking around the board. I've never really thought about it before, but this thing looks like edge highlighting hell. But again, it's just a super unique model that I don't think any other armies have something like. And this is a 3rd edition monolith from 2002. Now for the time, I can see this being super cool. The gemstone in the giant center is really nice, and I like all the gun turrets around the corners. Honestly, this model doesn't even look that outdated for 2002. I think it looks pretty decent. Immortals are a pretty classic Necron infantry unit, and these ones are from 5th edition. You could use either the Tesla carbines, or my personal favorite, the Gauss blaster. I think these guys are cool. They're just beefier looking warriors. I was honestly surprised they're from 6th edition is because they look pretty new. I don't think they're too outdated, especially when compared to the 3rd edition Immortals, which look like they also have that plastic tube. These guys still hold up okay as well. I think this paint scheme isn't doing them any favors, to be honest. This 2nd edition Immortal is very sick. We're back again to the 90s version of the Necrons. This is from 1998. I think they hadn't really created a real identity for the Necrons yet, and so they look much more steampunk than the new Necrons look now. The bolted on shoulder pads are very cool though. Scarab Swarms are a really cool Necron unit. I like the Swarms. These ones came with the Necron Warriors in 9th edition. They're attached to the same sprue, and I think these looked pretty good. I liked how many of them came on the single piece. These are 3rd edition Scarabs, and I gotta say, I think I like the new ones better. These ones are just kind of a little goofy looking, especially with their really short little arms, and these are 2nd edition Scarab Swarms. These guys are pretty cool. These are just steampunk spiders. I like it. Pretty cool to know that as long as the Necrons have been around, the Scarab Swarms have been there too. I wanted to look at some other random Necron units I haven't seen before, and the Pariahs stood out to me. These remind me of the Triarch Praetorians, but they seem a little bit different. They almost seem more cyborgy, and they definitely seem more human than the other Necrons look. I also didn't know that these Catan are from 2002. I've seen these models before, and they didn't look that old to me. They still look pretty good. It always surprises me how many times a unit is considered a staple, but it's over 20 years old. This classic Canoptic Spider is from 5th edition. I really like this model. I wish there was more of the Canoptic side of the army in the Necrons. I think the robotic stuff is really cool looking. This is a Tomb Spider from 3rd edition. I like this one too. His giant clipper claws in the front are really interesting, and I really like the head on him. These wraiths are really reminiscent of the Ophidian Destroyers, but they have basic warrior faces on them. It's really weird looking. It's nothing like the more modern Canoptic Wraith looks. This one looks a lot better in my opinion. Yeah, these are definitely an homage to those 3rd edition Wraiths. I never knew that. That's interesting. Well, thanks for watching and checking out the Necron model evolution with me. If you have or want any of these weird models, let me know down in the comments below. And check out this website, Lexicanum, for yourself. They have a really good, impressive collection of images. And thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe for more content like this and click the like button if you enjoyed. Take care.